Well, good day to you, ladies and gentlemen. This is Michael B. Ross, and I'd like to welcome you to the HBK High Performance Podcast. I hope the sun is shining and the birds are chirping in your life, and I hope all your dreams are coming true. Before we get started today in this interview with Amy Dalen, I would like to invite you, if you hear one good thought, phrase, idea, or quote today, I would like to ask you to put that thought, phrase, idea, or quote into absolute immediate action. I've got this sign in my office here that it says, without execution, ideas are worthless. It is the application of our education that makes the biggest difference in our world. And I don't want any of you to look back on your life with regret. The research shows that 85% look back on their life with significant regret. And the number one regret of the dying is I did not live a life true to who I knew I should be. I instead lived my life based upon the expectations of others. So please do yourself a favor and do us the pleasure of taking ideas that you hear today and putting them into action so they make a significant impact and transformation in your life. So with that said, the first thing I'd like to mention to all of you, some of you watching, is we're on Zoom today. For you on the podcast, that's why the audio quality isn't going to be like it would be in the studio, but this is too important not to share. So today I'd like to welcome in Amy Dalen, who is a partner at HBK. She's got a remarkable story. She's been all over the country, has a significant amount of experience that she's going to share with us today. And I'm very excited to have her on here with her busy schedule. She was able to take an hour out of her day to share her wisdom with us on the HBK High Performance Podcast. So Amy, welcome to the podcast today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, well, thank you for having me, Michael. This is great. I'm so happy that I could be here.
Wow, awesome. Well, if you don't mind, let's jump right in to the questions.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So, this podcast is about culture and leadership mainly. And you're a leader, you've been a leader for a long time. And I'd like you to just talk about your leadership style and how you've kind of figured out your own leadership style.
Sure. So, when I first started becoming a leader, it was a bit of a learning curve there. You never know how you're going to be interacting with different people. And what I quickly found out is how you're a leader, it really depends on who it is that you're leading. Some people require a little bit more hand holding. Other people, they're very hands off. They just come to you if they have an issue, if they want to talk something through. So I try and lead to the person. I try and pay attention to what the person actually needs from me. And I try and focus on that person's individual strengths. So a lot of times if I'm working with somebody that's younger that hasn't yet really figured out what exactly they're trying to do with their career, I try and identify what it is that they're good at, what it is that they're not good at, help them with some of the things that they're not good at, but then also try and find ways that I can focus on their strengths and use that to help them build themselves up and improve and basically move through the company and move up there. So it's definitely very individualized and trying to look at the specific person as to what exactly they need from me in order to lead.
That's awesome. Can you recall your first leadership position and what it was like when you stepped into that, knowing, well, now I've got people answering to me? Could you tell us a little bit about that story?
Sure. So, really when I would say it's been a number of different, you get into leadership really the moment that you start being higher up than somebody else and they start looking for you to help them and to guide them and to mentor them, to coach them, to whatever it might be. And so the minute I started moving up in my career and I started having people underneath me that I had to start guiding, that's really the first moment that I really started experiencing leadership and what that means. And I think it's really difficult because at first you have this whole idea of you have to be the manager, you have to manage them. And what does that mean? You have to make sure that they're doing everything that they're supposed to be doing. But you don't want to be looking over their shoulder too much. But leading is completely different from managing. Leading is more empowering the person to do what they need to do in the way that they do it, as opposed to trying to nitpick over every little thing and tell them exactly what they need to do. And so that was certainly an adjustment in the beginning in trying to figure out how was I going to work with these people and get the best work out of them, as opposed to they have to do it all my way and they have to specifically do everything that I tell them to do. So it was a little bumpy at first. And I think that, I'm always looking for ways to improve. I don't think that I have all of the answers now. And it changes. There's always something new that changes how I'm doing things and how I view things. And I try and read up on things, and I try and talk with people, and every person that I'm working with, they teach me something new. So.
Well, I love the delineation you made, and it's, you said manage or lead, and that's, management is very important. And, you made the delineation, and I like to say this, like, you manage systems, you lead people, but people run the systems that run your business, so there's this fine balance. And you said another word that I hope everybody picked up on, which was, you talked about empowerment, and you talked about, you've got to trust people, and you've got to put people in positions to be able to do their job well, and you can't control people. Do you think, Amy, there's a lot of control from people in leadership positions? Have you experienced anything like that? And, what do you think that does to people?
I've seen some people that are in leadership positions that probably shouldn't be there because they can't let go. They can't understand that the people below them don't have to do things exactly like they want it to be done. They tend to harp on the little things. They nitpick. And it can be really toxic, I think, to an environment and to having people below you move up and realize a really have a great career that they can be proud of. If they constantly have somebody looking over them and upset that they're doing things a different way, even though it might not necessarily be a wrong way, but if it's different from the way that the person in charge of them wants them to do it, I think that's a problem. And so I've seen the interaction there, and certainly in the past, been exposed to people that are like that as well, that are above me. Thankfully I don't experience that right now. But in the past, it has created problems. And I kind of take that as a lesson of what not to do. Don't act like this person was acting towards me, or don't act how this person was acting towards somebody else. That I looked at that and I saw the negativity there and how that impacted the other person.
Isn't it funny how we can learn sometimes what not to do? And that's sometimes a more visceral lesson than what to do. Somebody walks through, this is exactly what you should do, and then somebody shows you what not to do, and you go, I will never forget that lesson. So
yes, absolutely.
But that says a lot about you. It's taking everything. One thing that is so important as leaders is we're always teachable. And that says a lot about you, that you're willing to be teachable no matter what the leader is doing above you. You're going to learn something. So with that said, Amy, what's it like? HBK is a larger firm. It's not the largest, but we're a top 50 firm. What's it like to be a partner in a larger firm? You have 72 partners, and a lot of moving parts all at once. And what's it like? Describe to people. Most people will never be partners in a firm, but people are interested in that. So kind of describe what it's like for you.
Sure. So there's a lot of give and take. You're never going to get everything to go your way. You're never going to have your the way that you want things done to be the way that it's done, because it's about the entire organization. It's not just about you. And so you have to consider what's best for the firm as a whole. So there's a lot of that give and take, and we certainly see that in discussions that we have about how the firm gets run and how we deal with certain situations. But at the end of the day, it's all about communication. It's all about respect for everybody, understanding that everybody is coming at things from a different perspective. They have different life experiences, and that leads into how they view things, and making sure that you respect everybody as an individual and what they have to say. I think that it's truly important to keep that communication going and promote dialogue amongst our partners, so that everybody feels empowered that they can speak up and give their opinion. But then knowing that once a decision is made and once everybody's decided that this is the route that we're going to go with something, everybody supports that. Everybody is behind that because they were given the opportunity to give their opinion, to voice that opinion. And now we're moving forward. Now we've made our decision and we're going with it. And even if it's the wrong decision, you have to be willing to say, okay, we made a mistake here. We're going to take a step back. We're going to do something else. We can't be scared to fail. And so, a lot of being part of a large organization is understanding that it's all going to be about what's best for the entire organization.
And that's so important. I love this idea in society that everyone should live their passion and everyone should go after their convictions and run as hard as they can towards their goals and dreams. But you think if you partner with other people and you learn diplomacy, for example, how much further everybody can go if they give a little sacrifice, to the what's best for the whole. So that can be very challenging. What do you think the most challenging part of diplomacy is?
I would say when you feel really strongly about something and you've spoken up and nobody else seems to have that same view, then being able to bite down and say, okay, you know what, maybe I'm wrong in this. Maybe I just need to sit and see how this goes. And, if it comes up again, voice my opinion again. But again, it's all about what's best for the organization and supporting our fellow partners. So even if my opinion is not the one that we go with, I need to be able to be okay with that. And that's very challenging because I think people inherently want to be right about things. And I know I certainly like to be right about things. And you inherently want to do what you want to do. And so to be able to step back and say, okay, fine, we're going to do it a different way. That's really important. That's really challenging.
Yeah, it's funny, when younger people talk about wanting to be partners, I'm like constantly trying to encourage them to to get more humility in their life, and it's not humility in the sense that you diminish yourself. It's humility in sympathy, empathy, and compassion, to try to see something from somebody else's point of view. So less of us, more of others, so you can see how sociologically, even in a diplomacy, where you're looking at saying, okay, what's actually best for the whole? I may have this fantastic idea, and it doesn't mean there's not a time for it. It just might not be right now. Am I willing to let it rest, even though I want to get it done, so that the whole can benefit? And that's hard. It takes humility. And
absolutely,
man, I mastered my humility about 10 years ago, so I'm good. I'm just kidding. It's really a difficult thing to master, and it's something we got to work on constantly. So, Amy, tell us, on your journey, as you've continued to move up, and you have a very unique story, and you can share some of how you forge your values over your story. I'd love to hear that. But what values are most important to you? When did you gain them, and why are they so important to you?
I would say always understanding that family comes first. That has been something that's ingrained in who I am. and what I was raised with. That was very important to my parents, very important. I have two brothers, and we always were taught that we're going to be there for each other no matter what, and that's held true. I feel that I could go to them at any point and talk with them, and they're there for me. And so family always comes first, and I've tried to ingrain that in my own family. Now I have two young children, and I'm teaching them that they are important to each other, and we always have to be there for each other. And family comes first, even when you have a challenging career and you're trying to balance everything. And Lord knows with with COVID right now, this has been incredibly challenging in balancing between life and work and trying to find something that works. But being able to step back from work and say, no, I need to focus on my family right now. That's really important. And I think HBK really values that as an organization as well. We have our HBK promise, and part of that is respect for our people and their work-life balance, their ability to have their own personal lives. And so that in and of itself, when I joined HBK, that was incredibly important to me, because I knew at that time that I was joining that I was going to have a family, and I needed to have that balance. I needed to be with people that respected that. So that's really what drives me. Everything is for my family. I'm also passionate about what I do. I love being able to help clients. I love being able to help people. I enjoy talking through problems, and I focus on taxes, so I love taxes. And not a lot of people can say that, but I truly enjoy doing the research and figuring out a way that we can help our clients get the best situation possible. So that kind of is what drives me.
What do you think? You just said a couple really, really awesome things. And again, I hope everybody, if you're driving, don't take notes, but maybe log it away and write it down later. That idea of family comes first, that you have a group of people that, they say blood is thicker than water, and they're actually right about that. But the idea that you've got people that no matter what, they're gonna be with you for the rest of your life, and to put that as a priority. And you see so many people, Amy, and it's really sad. And I can say I've fallen into this trap more than I'd like to admit, where you get so wrapped up in the work, in the systems, in achievement and demands. How do you get yourself in the right state of mind to where you can put family first? What do you do to make sure that you prioritize that?
Honestly, I can say I am not an expert at that. There are times when I get so involved in work, and then it's a challenge to have to be able to step back and say, hey, family needs me. And there are other times that I get so wrapped up in family that I can't break away from that to go do what I need to do with work. And so my family keeps me pretty grounded. I would say my husband keeps me pretty grounded. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of stepping back and saying, okay, am I doing this properly? Am I really paying the attention that I need to pay to my family and to work and to get everything done? And it's never going to be a perfect balance. It's always a give and take. Some days it's going to be more work than family. Some days it's going to be more family than work. Again, with COVID, I try and say, okay, at this point I'm working and I'm focused on work, and then I'm going to cut off, and then this is family time. And early on, it was really difficult, because your family my kids were home and I was trying to work while they were home, and I had to come up with some sort of schedule that would actually fit. And then I had to say, what, weekends, I can't work weekends because I have to pay attention to my family and I have to do things there. So it's certainly a learning experience going forward, and it's never perfect. It's always adapting, and some things are going to pull you in one way, and then you just have to be able to adjust. But
And that it's kind of funny because I hear you talking. It's like, I always find this to be fascinating. The same things that you find to work with your family tends to work in business. And I heard you say earlier about diplomacy and making sure that you get along with others. It sounds like, between you and your husband, and then your children, that you use that same methodology to make sure that, hey, when things are awry, you've got a partner that comes in and says, hey, Amy, we need to pull back a little bit, and vice versa, and that you create an environment where you can be successful. I think that's, I'm being the student here and making observations, and that is something I hope everybody's picking up on, that, the same success that you can have at home could also translate into the marketplace. So yeah, that's great. That's a really great point.
Well, honestly, it's all about dealing with people, right? Whether you're dealing with the people in your family or you're dealing with the people in your business, everybody has their things. Everybody has their experiences, and that's going to translate into how they react to certain things. And you need to be able to pick up on that as you're working with them and figure out, okay, what are the areas that I'm gonna be able to spark that passion? How am I going to get them to actually do what I need them to do, right? So it's all about understanding people.
That's so good. And you talked about problem solving too, and that's something you're really good at. And is the drive behind that, that you want to take care of people? Is that partly why you get so excited about it?
I would say so. I also view it kind of as a challenge. If it's something that I've never seen before, I'm like, wait a minute, how can I figure this out? How can I fix this situation that hasn't been really touched on before, that I've never seen before, So I really enjoy the challenge and anything that keeps my brain going. And I'm constantly reading things and questioning things, and I can't just sit still and not be doing something like that and working my brain. So I really enjoy that part of it.
That's awesome. And that again, that's a lesson I think everybody's got to connect. There's a quote by Aristotle long ago. He said, where your passions and people's needs meet, there lies your vocation. And it's interesting when you find something that you're passionate about, that you're passionate about looking to solve problems and to do the research and to provide solutions. It's amazing that people's needs come into play, and then they marry. So it's a very important lesson. So thank you for sharing that with us. Next question. These are the ones that I think for me as a man in the marketplace and a white middle-aged male, I have a perspective, and my perspective is can be very myopic at times. I can live my life without a great sense of empathy, and I assume, like most others, that everybody sees the world the way I do, and if they don't, they must be wrong, because I got to be right about everything, and that's just simply not the case. But as you take a step back and you get in your streaming consciousness, you realize that there's other perspectives. And I've been excited to ask you this question because I want to learn from you, and that is, you're a female in a corporate world that is mostly dominated by white middle-aged males, and that obviously gives us a different perspective. And I want to hear from you. What do women face in the marketplace that would be good for males to understand, and males of all colors, races, creeds? I think we could take that from the broad scope, and I'd just like to hear from you. What's it like, and what could we learn that would help us make sure that we give into inclusion more than just saying, hey, we've got women in the marketplace and they work with us, and I want integration. I want complete integration so that it's seamless. So please help me to learn.
So I would say that men need to be willing to understand the experiences that women are faced with every day of our lives. It's different from a male, and I've talked about this in the past. How if a woman goes out and we see a van and big men, we're immediately on guard, going, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And you're kind of walking along and very aware of holding keys or gripping your purse or whatever it might be, and especially when you have young kids, you're gripping them tightly. I don't think men really think about that at all. Maybe some do, but for the most part, I would say men really just don't have that kind of frame of mind when they're going about and doing their things. So understanding that women come from that kind of background, and then translate that into business. If you're in an environment where woman is faced only with men, it's almost like you have your guard up constantly. Like, okay, what do I need to do? How do I need to present myself? How do I need to communicate so that they're not going to be a threat, and they're going to respect what I have to say. I would say that women are constantly questioned on what we have to contribute, whereas men, it's almost like it's expected that they're going to contribute something of value. So we feel the need to constantly justify what we're doing. And I think that also leads us to be a little bit more perfect in what we're trying to do. We're a little bit more cautious in putting ourselves out there, and we want to make sure that everything is perfect before we put it out there. Whereas men, I say that they're a little bit more relaxed about things, and they'll put something out there, even if it's not perfect, but it's good enough, and that'll pass for okay. And you see that as take promotions. I was reading something that said that men are more likely to get promotions because they put themselves out there when they know about 70% of what it is that they're doing. Whereas women, we wait until we know 100% of what we're doing before we actually put ourselves out there to say that we should be promoted. And so it's things like that, recognizing that we have that kind of frame of mind. That's really important. How we communicate is completely different too. We tend to analyze every little thing, right? We tend to approach things in a way that we are trying to placate a little bit, I think. We are trying to come at it a little bit more like, hey, I was just thinking this, and, what are your thoughts on that? And trying to be more diplomatic, I would say, than men that would come in and just say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. This is what we should do. Let's go do it. So the way we communicate is very different. And I think that men need to be aware of that. And it's not enough to just hear that, oh, communication is different. It's truly understanding how women communicate. I think that's the important thing.
Yeah, that's an awesome perspective, and you're right. As you were talking, I was thinking I've coached in sports, female teams and male teams, and the differences is astounding. Girls are just much easier, to be honest with you, because because they are, naturally, and I know this for my girls too, they are just naturally more prone to want to be a team. Mm-hmm. And guys are more prone to wanting to stand out, and even coaching now my son's teams, the boys want to talk junk to each other, and I'm better than you, and yada yada yada, and to get them to work as a team could be very challenging sometimes. So there's another thing, and I'll raise the temperature in the room here a little bit. Guys have these I think especially white middle-aged males, there's like this idea that, well, everyone's out to get us, we can't do anything right. It's like, if we turn and we say the wrong thing, we're sexist, we're racist, we're biased, we're blah, 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 which shows the unconscious systemic bias when we say stuff like that. But we do say stuff like that. So, sure. Let's just get it out there. What can we do to engage this conversation better with women without, saying something completely dumb and lunkheaded that will be sexist, right, so that we can bridge the gap here, and make the environment better for everybody. That's what ultimately the goal is. Let's create environments as leaders that no matter the race, color, creed, gender, affinities, you will have a great environment to grow and thrive. How can we do that?
So I think a lot of comments like that come from a lack of awareness that what they are saying is actually coming from that unconscious bias. And I think that it is imperative that they understand that, and then they accept that of themselves before you're going to see any sort of change. So people have to be open to realizing that they have flaws, they have things that need to be improved upon, and then go for it and learn. I would say that men need to take a conscious effort in understanding women. I think this is the same thing across all diverse groups. You have to understand where the other person is coming from, what their life experiences are, what they've gone through, in order to be able to respect that and realize that it's not about them, the person, the white middle-aged man. This is not about attacking them. It is about respect of your fellow human being and understanding how the things that you say can impact somebody else. And a lot of that comes from, you need to be part of a team working together, understanding people. It's all about people and who they are and what they interpret. When you're communicating, you're supposed to be communicating on their wavelength, communicating to them using the ways in which they communicate, not how you communicate and expect them to understand what you're saying. So I think they need to be aware of that. And if they're not aware of that, if they have no conscious ability to understand that they need to improve and change things, they're never going to change.
I think the awareness, oh my gosh, there's nothing like a light bulb moment, right? Just, oh, wow. And the world becomes this much bigger and larger place. The other part that you said, I think, that struck me was the acceptance of what is. Let's not fight what is. Let's work with it. Just because I have unconscious bias, that's based upon my filter. It's based upon how I grew up, where I grew up, the people I grew up around. A lot of the philosophies that were passed on doesn't make me a horrible person, which I think that as you were talking, that's where the connection point is. I think sometimes where white middle-aged males, they feel attacked, like you're a bad person because you don't. No. It's just, look, if you're from New Jersey and I'm from California, we'll have differences in the way that we grew up. We grew up in different areas, and my perspective on life and land is different based upon where I grew up, just like you. Well, we can have that conversation. Why can't we lean into the conversations about race, gender, creed, color, and just try to see each other's point of view so we can make the world a better place and make it better for everybody in every environment? So I love that you said the acceptance. That's going to stick with me. That's going to resonate with me, because that's humility, at the end of the day, where I'm going, no, this doesn't make me a bad person. That's just the way it is. And I want to be better. And if we don't want to be better, then it won't get better. And I think that's
exactly. Yeah, if people aren't willing to change, if you're not willing to recognize that there's something that needs to change in you, then you're never going to change. And I think that's a really important concept for people to understand.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And I do hope, as people are listening to this, that they hear the heart behind which this is shared. And that is to create unity. It's to create better cultures. It's to create better leaders. And if you want to be a great leader, you will be able to create environments that are as equal as you can make it to be for everybody. And that creates that requires a lot of humility. It requires a lot of learning and a lot of skill. So, Amy, again, I appreciate that. So with that said, our audience, we have about 40,000 plus regular listeners a month. And then we get listeners from all over the world. I've gotten emails from people all over the world, which I love. And I love the fact that people tune into this and they make it a regular part of their week. And I always want to give sound advice. So what I'm going to ask you to do is I want you to think about, the young leaders, the ones who are wanting to climb the ladder, who have great ambition to be successful in their life, to be great leaders. What's some advice you can give them that will help accelerate their path to success?
I would say people should listen. People should listen and they should learn. Being a leader, moving up, it's not about you necessarily. It's about listening to the needs of the people that you're working with. and being able to give them what they need in order to succeed. Because if they succeed, you succeed, everybody succeeds. So your success as a leader is really dependent on the success of the people below you. And if they're not successful, then you need to look internally into yourself and say, what are you not doing right? And so listen to your people, understand what makes them tick, understand what they're passionate about, understand how to get the best work out of them, how to speak to their strengths, and then listen to them when they come up with ideas of how to do things better, how to do things differently. I try to empower our people to think about how can they do their role better? How can they work more efficiently? And that is so important, because as we move forward with technology, there are going to be new things coming out. There's going to be things that we don't necessarily understand. But as we bring in younger people into our organizations, just understanding that they can participate and they can contribute so much and help us do things a lot better.
That's awesome. I love the idea of learning, continual and voracious learning. There was a study done by King researchers named Anders Ericsson, and he's studied success, and he hit on this whole study came down to two main points: to be a continual and voracious learner, and practice what you learn. Those are the two common characteristics of successful people. So you nailed it. And Amy, I appreciate you taking the time with us again. It has been awesome to learn from you, myself, and I hope that everybody, throughout the world is listening to these words and they're allowing them to sink in and thinking about ways that they can apply what they're learning. Would it be okay if you would give people an opportunity to contact you? Is
Absolutely.
there a way that they can contact you? And if so, let them know, the best ways to do that.
Sure. Everybody can email me. My email address is adalen, DALEN, @hbkcpa.com. I can also be reached at my office, although I'm currently working remotely. That's 239-263-2111. And I'm happy to talk with anyone. I'm also on LinkedIn, so people can go ahead and request me there.
Get on LinkedIn and get Amy right away. And if you do want some further deeper dive with Amy, please email her adalen@hbkcpa.com. And if you're looking for some good tax advice and you don't know where to turn, please reach out to Amy too. As you've heard, she loves to solve problems for her clients and help them have a better life. So again, Amy, we appreciate so much you coming on here. I hope we get to do it again sometime soon.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. This was great.
Thank you. All right, everybody, make sure you take absolute immediate action on the ideas that compel you. And I look forward to seeing you next time and talking to you next time on the HBK High Performance Podcast.